All right, the next couple of tasks then, let's have a look. It says, so task number 4, write a formula which will return the grade corresponding to the percentage. Right, so we want grades appearing here, but we're not going to type them ourselves. We want them to automatically appear. So we've got use a formula. So here's the reference table sitting over here. That's what we need to use. I'm just going to do something over here. Just ignore this, ignore all of that. Okay, fine. Anyway, so here is a table of reference which tells us what grade to return depending on the percentage. So for example, this person's got, let me change that now to something different. Let's just say 5 marks. Here we go. So this top person has 5 marks, which means 6%. And in that case, it doesn't even get to a G. It's still a U. So 20% would be a G, 20 to 30%. 30% would be an F, 40% would be an E, and so on. So for example, Michelle over here, who got 81%, she'd be an A, and so on, all right? But we want these grades to automatically appear here. Okay, so if I just click on the first cell over here, I'm now going to look for the lookup, Vlookup formula. So I'm going to go to lookup and reference and find Vlookup. Remember, if there's ever a formula that you're looking for and you can't find it, then you can just go to insert function. You can get that from the bottom of any of these menus or on the left-hand side over here. Right, with the Vlookup, you need 4 arguments. You need the lookup value, which is what are you looking for in a table? What are you looking for from here in a reference table? So the lookup value is the percentage. I'm looking for the percentage in this table. The Vlookup formula will look for your lookup value in the first column of whatever reference table you're using. So I've given it D3. Which it will read as 6%, and it's going to look for it in this first column. It's going to look for 6% in this first column. So it always looks for your value in the first column of your reference table, and your reference table might have 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, it doesn't matter how many it has, but anyways, it could just be any number of columns. So again, the lookup value is D3 in my case, yeah, the first percentage. What is the table array that you are looking for that value in? Right, so what is the reference table? Well, it's all of this. This is my reference table. So that's why it's reading K4 to L12. Okay, so table array is the reference table, so you just select the whole thing. Column index number. The column index number is the number of the column in your table that you want a value returned from. So in my first column, I've got percentages, but I don't want a percentage coming back again. That doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to write 1. So I'm not going to type 1 as in first column. My column number 2, because I've only got 2 columns anyway. So my column number 2 has the grades in it. So column index number in this case will be 2. If I had, my percentages in one column of my table, and then, I don't know, names or something in my second column, and then my grades were in the third column, then that's column number 3. So I would put 3 here. But in this case, I've only got 2 columns. So that's why I'm putting 2. The range lookup wants you to specify, if I read here at the bottom, so it's always good to read, now and then at least, the help text that comes up in Excel and in the dialog boxes and whatever. So range lookup will have either the value true or false. So it says here, this is a logical value. To find the closest match in the first column, then write true. So if you want the closest match, then you write true. So if you want to look for the closest match of your percentage, then you would write true. If you want an exact match of your percentage, then you will write false. Well, it doesn't make sense to write false because that will be trying to find an exact match. But I've got 81 and 69 and 56. They don't exactly, live in my table. So I have to do true, which is closest match. So that's why in this last column here, or not column, but my last text box, text area, oopsie, not truer, I'll type true. Here we go. So from that, you just click OK, and it's returned me the grade of U. That's correct, because 6% is less than 20%, which is a G. So anything below 20% is a U, so that is correct. Let me do that one more time. Vlookup. Lookup value is this, the percentage. My table array is this. And my column index number is 2, because it's my second column that the grades are in. And my range lookup is a closest match, so it's true. and then you click OK. And it works. So that's a G. Yep, that makes sense because it hasn't reached 30%, so it can't be an F. Okay, so like you would normally, you know, have a formula repeating the pattern for one row to the next, to the next, to the next. You can do the fill handle. So let's go ahead and do the fill handle. Let's see what happens. It's messed up a little bit. So let's have a look at the formula itself. So Vlookup D4. So this one was working fine. K4 to L13. Oh, hold on a second. Well, it's just got one extra. That was because I couldn't see the box before, but anyway, it was supposed to be that. Let me go to the first one because that was definitely correct, right? So K4 to L12 is my table range. So that's fine, and that seems to be working fine. Okay, next formula. Let me just double check. It seems to have gone wrong here somewhere. So let me just double click on one of these. Oh, here you go. This is a problem. Look at what it's highlighting for your table arrays. That's obviously wrong. Remember when you use the fill handle to drag a formula down, it moves the relative references as well. So of course, it was K4 to begin with, but because I was moving the formula down using the fill handle, it was moving the reference down as well. So what we need to do is make this an absolute cell reference. There's a couple of things we can do. The first thing we can do is make it an absolute cell reference. So let me show you that first. You select anywhere around the first cell value and do the F4, and then around the second cell value or cell reference, do the F4, and then you drag it down. So that would lock the cell or the cell references, and therefore the cell references will remain the same no matter where you drag this formula to. Okay, so that makes more sense now. Lovely. Another way you can do this is by not using cell references, but using names instead. So what you can do, you can actually select your area that is your reference table, and then you go up here to the left-hand side where you've got the name box. So currently it's reading K4 because that was the first cell of the collection of cells I selected. So when you select the collection of cells, go to your name box, click, delete whatever is in there at the moment, and then you just come up with a name for your actual table array. So for now, I'm just going to call it grades. It's got, I can't spell today, what's going on? Grades, and then you're not allowed to have any spaces in these names, so you just leave it as one word. If you want to have a name which has multiple words, then you just can't have any spaces. So for example, if you wanted to do percentage, so I should do pers for short, pers to grades, then you can do that. It's one word, it's got no, well, it looks like one word, it's got no spaces, but it might have more meaning to you if you just have a more descriptive name, so that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. You've got to press enter, and then that commits the name to that area. And now, as you can see, if I click here, it says I1. If I click here, it says H7. If I click here, it says K4, but if I click like all of it together, it will say percentage to grades. So what I can do is go to this first formula here, and instead of this whole cell reference or range here, this cell range, I can change it to pers to grades, and it comes up here. So I'm just going to double click that. There you go, pers to grades. And if I press enter, that formula is working fine, and I can click and drag that down. Lovely. That's been copied down as it needed to be copied down. So if I go over here somewhere, there we go, we can see that it's using the name now of my range of cells to get a grade back. Okay, right, so that's how you do the formula for returning a grade corresponding to the percentage. That was done using the VLOOKUP formula. That one you might need to go over a couple of times because it is a little bit complicated. Maybe the if statement as well, you might be finding that a little bit complicated as well. Just keep going over it and use your other spreadsheets that you have to maybe apply this somehow. You can just figure out how, or just come up with a scenario how you can use the if statement. Or the VLOOKUP, and you should get better with that. Any questions though, please let me know. I've done number 5 together with my example just now, which was name the reference table you used the formula for the formula above and then adjust it. We just done that. Okay, let's go into 6. What time are we on now? Okay, let's just do this. Make the data more presentable. So how do you make the data more presentable? If it ever says that, it means make it easier to read. First of all, by adding borders. So let's do that first. You've got labels up here, and then you've got the details underneath. So let's differentiate them. So let's make the labels looking more like headings. So one thing you can do is make it bold. And another thing you can do is maybe change the color of the cell. So I'm just going to keep it gray for now. Another thing you can do is actually make sure that the data is fully readable. Now here, now I can see all the data, so make sure nothing's being covered. That's about it for now. You can leave it like this. If you wanted to name that, then you can, whatever. It doesn't really ask you to, or we were more concerned about the data. But if you wanted to, then you can have just like a name up here saying percentage to grade, fine, whatever. And then you can just select those two cells together, do a bit of merge and center, that just merges the cells. I'm just going to downsize the text, make it bold, and then just, I don't know, color it blue or something. There you go, lovely. I made it more presentable. Okay, that bit is done. Got a couple of tasks left. I'll do that in the last video. Okay.